Okay, so now that we have created the basic structure of our site with these ugly colors, but we know it's sitting right, now we need to actually start creating our content and making it pretty again. So we're going to come through and work through these one by one. So the first one I want to do is the body. I actually don't want it to be gray. But I'm going to leave that background gray so we can see what's happening with this next step. Now I've created my background image and I'm going to go to Browse and find my forest background and click Open. Now, if I were to view this in a browser, real-time preview, Google Chrome, let's go ahead and save that. When it opens up in a browser, as you can see, it's filling it up, but you can't see it because my screen is 1920 by 1080, but when I make it much wider, see how it repeats? And if I were to, let's see, I don't know, I can't bring it up, but it actually repeats down at the bottom too. I don't know if it won't show you it, but if you were to do this on your own, you'd be able to see that. So I don't want it to actually repeat. I actually just want it to cover the screen. So I'm going to come over here and I want to say background repeat and choose none because the default setting is to repeat all the way across the X and the Y. So repeat across the entire page. So I'm going to say no repeat. And when I do that, see how when I come back in the browser, it's got gray down or over here. So that gray is showing me that that's where that color is coming through. So coming back over here, now I can say background position. So if I wanted it to be in the center, I can choose center. If I want it to be like at the bottom, like start from the bottom or the top or the center of the screen, I can do it here. But for this particular one, I don't want to do that, but you can if yours makes sense that way. So background size, you can choose how big it can be, but we also have cover and contain. So you'd think cover would mean cover. And actually I think it does mean cover. So see, I always forget these settings, but now it's like covering the whole screen. And because we made it blurry, even if it gets bigger, it's not going to really look like a massive loss in quality. And actually it's not bad when it's really big. So I think, cause this is the natural size it's supposed to be, but now I'm going outside of my screen recording area and making it, instead of 1920, it's like 2250, and you can see that it's still not like a quality issue. Okay, so I think that's it. I think if you try to do contain, maybe that's where it gets weird. So but it doesn't hurt anything to come in here and try different settings. So you can also do background attachment where it will scroll with your site or it won't scroll as you scroll. So I actually like it when it doesn't scroll, so I'll do fixed. All right, so let's see, fixed doesn't do, and I can't scroll, so I can't really see how that works, but yeah, okay. So let's go through and start getting rid of, I want to make the wrapper black, but I don't want it to just be black. See how you can only see black through right here? I want to make it semi-transparent, but you can't see that yet until we take all this stuff out. So the header, I don't want to have any background color. And the nav, see how in the header though, I can't see the text. It like went away. And that's because in the body, I never set my text color size to be white. So I'm going to make the font color white, and you might not need to do that if your text, oh, that was the text shadow. I just did something weird. Color white. Okay. So if you choose a different, like if you have a white semi-transparent, then you're going to want to leave it black. So now I can see that text. So let's go to header. We got rid of the background color. The navigation right now, we don't need a background color, so we can get rid of that. And the slider, let's just leave that as is. Main is not going to have a background color either. Aside, nope. And footer, nope. Okay, so now when I go back to wrapper, I can choose HSLA and make it semi-transparent. And now I should be able to see that image through, so that's good. So this background image that we created, it's not essential to people understanding the site, but the logo is. So that's why we could add the background image through CSS, but we don't want to make the logo anything through CSS. We actually want to hard code it in there because A, people need to click on it to go back to the home page, and B, because it actually describes part of the site. It's actually the title of the site. So normally what I could do is I could delete in here. But if I do this, sometimes it gets rid of your box. So you could always just highlight it and then put the logo in over it, or you could go to insert. I just have the cursor at the end. I'm going to choose image and choose temporary logo, and then get rid of all that text in there. So get rid of that, and there's my logo. Now I want it to sit in the center, so in that header rule, I can go to text and choose text align center, and that looks pretty good. Now, if you didn't have a lot of space in your logo like I did on the top and bottom, just know that you can add some padding to the top and bottom of the header rule. So for the nav, we're going to actually need to add some content in here. So I'll go to insert, and I want to do an unordered list, and I want to make this, well, and it didn't work when I clicked it. So unordered list. So you can see this bullet that's hanging off, and that's because we have the global selector. But I just want to do link, 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 and I'm just hitting enter return because I want to have 5 pages in this site. Okay. So again, the slider is actual content, so I'm going to delete that, and see how it goes away? It's ridiculous. So I'm going to click the end of it and hit image, come on, image, and put the slider. And then I can get rid of all this content in here because I don't need that anymore. That was just a placeholder so we could see it. So now we have the main, and I don't like that like it's touching. It freaks me out that it's touching. So I'm going to go to main, and I'm going to give it some margins on the outside. So I'm probably actually just going to do the top and the left. So on the top, I want 10, and on the left, I want, well, maybe I want to do 20 on both of them. And what this is going to do is it's actually going to cause some problems with the aside because, and I do want to do it on the, there we go. Okay, just to get it to sit away from the footer. And the aside, I want to do the same thing, except for I just want it to be, all of them should be 20. So I can click in here and do 20 px. And then I just want to throw this particular one on the left away. Okay, well, and maybe actually I don't, because I don't want them to sit next to each other. So if for some reason yours goes down, it's because your aside and your main are too wide. So I might come in here and change this to 550. And I might come in here and make this like 250 or something. So I'll go ahead and undo because mine weren't sitting bad. So I think we're good for right now. Okay, so then for the footer, I might want to make this text a little bit grayer, a little bit less noticeable. So I'm going to do center, and I want to do some padding in here just so it has some room. And I might want to make this a smaller size. So maybe I want to do like 10 px. Whoa, not 110. Oh my God. Okay. Nobody panic. Here we go. 10. No, that's too little. 10, 12, 13, 14. Let's do 14. Okay. So this is where I would add all of my copyright information. So now I can start adding things like, you know, I can come in here and say, welcome to the site. And then I can add some lorem ipsum in here if I wanted to. So going to a lorem ipsum site. Ipsum, well, I don't know. It's like ipsum.com or something. Lipsum, there you go, Lipsum. So I can generate some lorem ipsum and copy some lorem ipsum and paste that into my site. So now you can see where we have 2 paragraphs and they don't have spacing. So I'm going to come in here and do H1 and say what my H1 should look like. So maybe, and I'll probably do a Google font with this, but I don't have time in here. So make sure you watch the video on creating Google fonts. But I do want this H1, well, and see, and I haven't made this in H1. So I need to come in here to insert and make it an H1 so we can see what it's actually going to look like. Okay, so for H1, I want to make it maybe Gotham Helvetica, and maybe I want it to actually be pretty darn big. So we're going to make it 47, let's say. And see how it's going right up to the edge. So maybe I don't like this, but now I can hit P tag. So again, I want to change the font family. So maybe I want it to be Cambria, and I want to do some line height. So let's do M for line height. Oh, that's going to be massive. So 1.7 em. All right, so that doesn't look too bad. And then for all of these, you're going to have to come back through and change the margins and the padding. So I want the margin of the top of each paragraph to, or maybe the bottom. Let's do the bottom. Because what that's going to do is you can see it pushes 24 pixels away. It pushes the next. So I like to make that round. Well, I don't have any time for that, but 25 pixels away. So every time now, if I come in here and type a new paragraph, you can see the gap above. Okay, so that you're gonna have to do that for your ordered lists, your unordered lists, all of your headings. So if I were to put a heading 2 in here, like a subheading, and highlight this, insert, and make it a heading 2, see how it doesn't have a gap underneath it? So I need to create an H2 and be able to say, maybe I want this one not 25, but maybe 11, just a tiny little gap, but maybe I do want it to be quite big on the top so that you can easily see when a heading 2, when it's like a new section. So I can change the font style, maybe not make it bold, maybe change the color, whatever I want to do to this. And you should do that. You should really style every kind of tag that you think somebody's going to use in their site. So if they're going to have a table, design the table. If they're going to have H3, H4, H5, and H6, you should style all of them. So I'm going to come to the aside, and I actually had a border that I wanted to have right here. So I'm going to come and choose the left side and choose, let's do thin for right now, and solid and white. That's not quite white, and I'll just do hex because I don't need semi-transparent. Okay, so see how it moved down here? The reason why is because it's too big now. And I do want to do some padding, so I'm going to make it even bigger because see how it's like right next to each other? So I want to do some padding on the inside to get it to sit away from that border. So probably want to make that 20. Okay, so this is where I need to maybe come in here and I need to maybe make this to 80. And I might want to make the main, let's see, 560. And now it should sit correctly. Now, for me, the H1 has too big of a gap underneath it, so I'm going to come in here and do pixels. 0 margin, 0 padding, maybe. It's because I had a thing in there. Okay, so let's go to H1, and I actually want to have some padding in there, but maybe not crazy. There we go. And see how I don't like that the side is like way up there, so for this one, I might do a big margin. I'm going to release the margin and do a much bigger margin on the top so it kind of sits a little bit more with the text down here. So there we go. So now I'm going to add an H2 called events and highlight that, insert, make it an H2. Okay. So see how the H2 has a massive gap above it, and we made it just like it looks great here, but now it looks like dumb here. Well, there are a couple things on the aside. Well, it doesn't have any padding. So what I can do is if I want all of my H2s to look like this, but in this particular instance, this one is not working out for me, and I don't want it to have a huge margin. Let's see. Let's see how this is an H2. It's affecting all H2s. So when I click in here and I click plus, what I can do is say any H2 that's in the aside, so I can take a wrapper out, should be styled differently than every other regular H2. So an H2 that's in the aside should have a margin on the top of 0 pixels. So that's going to say that this H2 is a little bit more unique and specific than any H2 that I have in here. So if I were to come in here and have a heading 2 right now here, insert H2, come on, there we go. See how it still has that gap? Because this one is saying only H2s that are in the aside. Since these aren't in the aside, it's not going to have that style. So we're running out of time, but let's view this in the browser. And then you should just create your own styles by following the same, adding padding and margin and color and background, etc. So let's look at this and see what we've got. So it's going pretty good. It's got a fixed background, and now we just need to work on the navigation.